Hey everyone! Today's recipe is part 1 of a 2 video series on how to make Monjani style chicken internet. People from Kolkata might be very well aware of this particular dish. It is quite similar to a patty but isn't as fluffy and puffed up, but has a signature web-like design on the top. Before we jump into making the chicken internet, it is inevitable to learn how to prepare a good puff pastry dough which is buttery and flaky and makes for such decadent baked goods, whether they be savory or sweet. The dough of a puff pastry consists of many layers of fat sandwiched between layers of dough. Begin by sieving 4 cups or 550 grams of all-purpose flour or maida. Add about a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of sugar into the flour. Roughly cut 200 grams of semi-solid butter and add it to the flour. Try to use unsalted butter in this recipe. This helps in having a control over the amount of salt in your dish. However, if you do not have unsalted butter, then skip adding salt into the flour. Mix the butter well into the flour using your hand. Try to rub the flour and butter between your fingers so that it is well incorporated. The trick to know whether butter is well incorporated in the flour is to press some amount of the flour between your palm and it should retain its shape easily. It will also crumble as easily. Now squeeze in the juice of 1 lemon into the flour and butter mixture. Remember to remove the seeds in advance. Now gradually add in ice cold water and start combining the flour into a dough. Do not use warm or room temperature water. It is absolutely necessary to use ice cold water here if you want a crispy and flaky puff pastry. You will require about 150 ml of water to make this dough. The dough would be quite sticky at this point. Now dust some flour onto your neat kitchen slab and start kneading the dough by using the stretch and fold technique as shown here. After kneading the dough for about 5 to 7 minutes, you will notice that the dough is turning soft and smooth and is more pliable. Put it back into a bowl and cover it with a kitchen towel and keep it in the fridge for half an hour. There is absolutely no need to put it in the freezer. Meanwhile, melt the rest of the butter, that is 300 grams, and when it slightly cools down, mix in 3 tablespoons of flour into it. Mix until it is free of lumps. After about 30 minutes, take the dough out of the fridge and start rolling it on your kitchen surface. Do not forget to dust the kitchen slab with some flour to prevent the dough from sticking. Roll out the dough, being careful that it should neither be too thick nor too thin. Now with the help of a brush, apply the butter and flour mixture evenly and all over the flattened dough. Once done, we get to the most important part of making a good puff pastry dough: folding. Fold each side of the dough halfway, that is to say, bring each side till the center of the flattened dough. After you have folded 2 sides of the dough, apply some butter on it and fold in the other 2 sides. Follow the exact same technique that is shown in the video. The dough will be rectangular or squarish in shape after being folded. Now cover it with a parchment paper or cling film and put it back into the fridge for half an hour before we repeat the same process all over again. After half an hour, take out the dough from the fridge and place it on a flour dusted kitchen surface and start rolling it into a big rectangle. Apply the butter and flour mixture with a brush or with your fingers all over the rolled out dough. Let's repeat the same folding technique that we did earlier. Bring 2 sides of the dough to the center, reapply butter on those 2 sides and bring in the other 2 sides of the dough to the center. Cover with parchment paper and pop it in the fridge for 30 minutes. We have to repeat the same step 2 more times. The rolling, applying butter and folding has to be done a total of 4 times in a row. Once done, you can use it immediately or you can store it for later use. It will remain good for about 2 months if kept in an airtight container in the freezer. Remember to cut off the sides of the dough before you fold it in for the final time. It is done so as to get an even sized dough. The puff pastry dough that we have shown here is a quicker and easier version of the more time and effort consuming technique of making the conventional puff pastry dough. This works best as a base for people who are trying their hands on baked goods for the very first time. This dough is good enough to bake veg patties, chicken patties, or cream rolls. For people who want a more detailed recipe of the traditional puff pastry dough, do not be disappointed because we will be coming up with a more comprehensive video on the same subject in our upcoming videos. For the second part of this recipe, click on the link given below. Take care. Bye-bye.